Why not?
Welcome.
Why not?
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an episode of The Abyss Dares Back, Our Lives in Horror, and Strange Playgrounds, all in one.
And whatever the hell else you fancy
Whatever.
calling it, you know?
Exactly. This will be shared out on all major social medias like Blue Sky, Twitter.
Insofar as Twitter still exists, you know.
Just about, yeah.
I was going to say, at this point, by the end of the week, it might be gone. Who knows? It might have imploded, or
fucking hope springs eternal, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know, Elon might have decided that it works better if it doesn't work at all.
Yeah. I don't get him. I mean, in terms of an individual, he's just the absolute fucking worst. At worst, he looks like he's wearing a Halloween mask of his own face.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I mean, the true geniuses are his PR team, right? Who've managed up until this point to camouflage the insane fuckery, the entitled, spoilt brat narcissist that he is. Now it's all seeping out all over the place. Even they can't contain it. Even like and it must be like millions, if not more, that he spent on PR, can't contain it. And now everyone can see what a complete rancid moron the guy is.
Well, I mean, what I love is the fact he gets in an arseache. It's ironic, really. He gets in an arseache when everyone insists on dead naming X Twitter.
Yeah.
When he has the fucking absolute gall to dead name his own kid.
Yeah. I know, right?
So the irony is just not there for you, is it? It's just not happening.
I mean, you know, what I love, I mean, you couldn't write this. If you wrote this in a comedy sketch, an editor would come back to you and say, that's too much, that's ridiculous, that's not funny, you're going to have to tone that down or change it. So you get this guy who's advertised himself throughout his career, quote unquote, insofar as he's had such a thing, as this like futurist tech bro kind of guy who's intimately connected to the internet and so on and so forth. And he decides to rebrand a popular platform whose logo and name is known where you can't even fucking access the internet or computers. It's known everywhere. There are like tribes in the depths of the Amazon basin who've never had any human contact for the last 6,000 years who know what Twitter is, right? And know the blue bird logo. He decides to rebrand it with an X.
Yeah. Basically making it look like some sort of a questionable fucking porn.
Right. And not only that, but like it's a symbol that's non-distinct that you can't search properly because of that very factor. So it is he could not be doing. I know why there are there are sort of like conspiracy theories that he's doing it deliberately. I get it, because he couldn't be doing a better fucking job if he were. You know?
Yes.
It is insane. It is insane. But it's like I always say, you know, I've been saying on Twitter for the longest time, if you want a microcosm of what billionaires are doing to this world, to our societies, to humanity, and to the world itself, look at what Elon is doing to Twitter. And that's it.
Absolutely.
That is what they are doing to the world. And, you know, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I should say this, but we are coming to the point where these individuals have insulated themselves from not only reprisal, but from containment to such a degree that the only answer is going to be violence.
Yeah.
And I wholeheartedly mean that. The only solution for our survival, for the survival of humanity, is going to be violence very soon.
Well, I mean, you know, the day's young.
You know, it's because there doesn't seem to be any other mechanism by which to rein them in, by which to, you know, to stop them fundamentally undermining everything humanity has built over the last, 12,000 years?
About that, give or take.
Yeah, it's not going to take them long, it seems, to undermine it all completely, to destroy it all.
And speaking of undermining everything and destroying everything you worked so hard to create, moving from one absolute horror story to another, that feeds very, very nicely into our discussion that we're going to have today.
That was a good segue. That was very smooth.
Thank you so much.
That was very smooth.
Speaking of greedy corporations and for the greater good,
this is a classic example of life imitating art, imitating life, imitating art, isn't it? You know,
absolutely. I mean, this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, is one that me and George have been on and off discussing about whether or not we're actually going to fucking do it for
a long time,
for 13 years,
long time. Never sat down to do it for some reason. I have no idea.
No, well,
in the interim,
we started to. We were going to do this very, very subject. And fuck
now
off.
I can hear them.
Yeah, now you can hear it. Fuck
now
off.
I can hear them.
And then we got sidetracked, and we ended up talking about something completely different, and that was 18 months ago. So this has to happen, ladies and gentlemen.
It needs to be reined in. It needs to be what we're talking. What are we talking about, Joe?
We are talking about the seminal 1979 sci-fi horror classic, Alien.
Yeah. I mean, my God, it's actually, I think one of the reasons, even if it's subconscious, one of the reasons we've almost like evaded it, certainly for me, is that it's hard to talk about because it's like, first of all, it was there from the beginning. I literally cannot remember a time before Alien. It's like when you grow up. No, exactly. Like when you grow up with certain children's toy franchises or cartoons, and they're ambient, they're part of your understanding of reality of the world. This is the same. I have always been aware of Alien.
Yeah, I mean, I watched those films out of sequence. I think I started with the second one, went on to the third one, and then went back and watched the first one. And I watched them at a relatively young age, in like about 10 or 11 or something like that. I remember watching Alien 3. Well, I mean, we'll come on to that when we do the video. When that first came out on VHS to rent. And my mum, she had a brain cell, so she went, "This is not going to freak you out because you look at films in a very, very dissectable fashion." Like, I mean, even when I watch films now, I go to a cinema and I'm watching the cinematography, I'm watching the sound mixing, I'm looking out for those sort of things. So she knew that it wasn't going to freak me out. I kind of wish I'd watched them in order, but. Yeah, for me, Alien is. I mean, I'm glad we started this conversation because you've recently started playing a game called Scorn, which for me is such a spiritual cousin. Of it. I mean, we haven't got past episode 2 yet because I didn't forgive you for what you did to that poor bastard.
It gets worse. I'm telling you, it gets worse. I mean, like in Scorn, living things are resources. Everything is slave to the machine. Whatever these machines, these engines are, they're just resources for it. And and obviously the aesthetic influence of Alien, and of course of H.R. Giger, of H.R. Giger's biomechanoid work. It's just, I mean, it is that made into a video game, isn't it? It's like someone's flipped through like Giger's biomechanoid books and gone, okay, can we turn that into a working environment? Can we turn that into an interactive environment?
Well, I'll spin back around to that. I mean, so for anyone who doesn't know, the premise of Alien is a crew of essentially space truckers are awakened from hypersleep early when they find a distress signal. They follow the source of the distress signal. Turns out it's not a distress signal; it's a warning. Shenanigans ensue. And all of them, bar one, end up dead thanks to this creature that has unwittingly been brought on board from their point of view. Anyway,
it's really fascinating when you look at the script. When you look at the Dan O'Bannon's original script, it's on like a lot of the DVDs and Blu-rays and whatnot. The script itself is oddly no great shakes. It is very standard. It is a kind of standard sci-fi horror of the era. It doesn't have a lot of the resonance that would be brought in as a result of certain decisions in the creation of the film. So the decision, for example, all of the cast in the original script are genderless. They could be anyone. They could be men, they could be women. It doesn't matter. They just have names. And that actually factors into their relationships as well on ship, because there are one of the most interesting things about the film to me is that it is a kind of a weirdly sexless world that it draws. The characters, it's almost as though it's so far into the future that notions of gender have collapsed completely and it's not even a concept. And it's kind of cool in that regard. The way the male and female characters operate towards one another is purged of gender bias in this script, and that makes Ellen Ripley, the decision to make the protagonist character a woman at this time in this kind of fiction, it makes it phenomenally interesting.
Yeah, if we let's look at the set design for example, the in particular for now the derelict ship, and this will fit back to what I was talking about Scorn, the chamber where they find the almost mummified remains of the jockey, space jockey.
Yeah, the pilot of this particular ship, who is it's an alien creature. But what I love about Giger's design is you can't tell where the entity starts and its mechanisms, its machinery end. It's sort of like it's symbiotically linked into its equipment. You can't even tell. I mean, it looks like a pilot's chair of some description, but it is for an alien anatomy. And this thing, you cannot tell what it looks like just by looking at the space jockey itself. And I love that. I absolutely love that.
Now, when we finally come around, ladies and gentlemen, to talking about Prometheus, one of the things I want to touch upon is to what a fundamental degree that entire concept has been shat on,
just completely
shattered.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake. Part of what makes the space, because that sequence is completely incidental. You can cut it out of the film, and it makes no difference to the plot at all. It's all world building. It's all world building, but it has such weight and depth. And the fact, also, I mean, this is another thing. This is 1979, so there are no computer effects here, none whatsoever. All of this is practical. The sets exist. The sets were built, they were sculpted, and this thing, the space jockey, which is immense, by the way, the entity itself is much bigger than a human being, and the equipment is massive. It has such presence and sort of a physically imposing nature. It's incredible. It is absolutely incredible. It's one of the more chilling moments in the film, actually, when you encounter it. I mean, the other thing, of course, is it's dead. It's almost fossilized, isn't it?
Has been dead for some considerable time. I mean, one of the things that I love about that whole thing is one for, apart from the set design, which is creepy as all fuck anyway, is the subtle plays on lighting. Which I'll factor back into a little bit later on when we first finally see the alien. Because for the longest time, for years and years and years, I'll talk about that now. For years and years and years, I didn't even know what you were looking at was the full adult. I thought it was an engine block or something caught up in the chains and just like sort of sitting up there. And it was only years later I watched it back on like a YouTube video. I went, hang on a minute.
Yeah, it's part of it's part of the genius of the way this film is framed. Honestly, I mean, like Ridley Scott, he is a very good cinematographer. He's a very good cinematographer. He knows how to frame shots to not only evoke mood, but also to trick the audience. So Alien is the best example of this. There are times when you see the alien and you don't know you see it. Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's incredible.
And the fact that, like, you do mistake this thing for bits of machinery and bits of the ship, it feeds into the wonderful themes of the film that are brought about by Giger's art designs, of course, which always incorporate mechanisms bound with organics, with anatomy, to the point whereby you can't tell where one begins and the other ends. That's something that you get in the design of the ship, that's actually the alien ship itself. It's hard to tell what you're looking at, like what materials it's made out of. It looks like it's alive, or was alive once upon a time. It looks like, and this is something Prometheus should have done, by the way, but just doesn't. It looks like the ship could have been cultivated rather than constructed. Like it's like these creatures, these aliens, their technology is not separate from their anatomy in the same way that ours is.
No,
it's bound into it. It's part of it. They could have so easily played with the notion of integrated technology, and they don't. that it's one of the really problematic things about Prometheus, but which here in Alien, because I mean this film is so much cleverer than Prometheus by a country mile, so much subtler. You get the implications of that just from ambience, just from the art design, from looking at things. It seeds itself in your mind, and you don't need characters standing around saying, "Oh, it looks like these alien entities integrate their technology." You don't have that. You don't have that.
No,
the only things they say are like expressions of awe.
I mean, the first time you see the jockey in the chair, like sort of, if you look at the wider shot, when they're climbing up onto its platform and the camera pans back, and that reminds me a lot of that game that you were playing, when you got up to that top platform, where you were trying to work out what the rudimentary machinery does.
Yes.
And I said to Jen, "This is the derelict."
Yeah.
The everything about this. Construction, the design of the level, everything like that. If this game doesn't end up somehow being a very, very Weasley sort of like successor or tie-in to Alien, I think I'd be fucking surprised, because everything about this is just screams it.
I don't know yet because I'm not far enough in, but I'm getting the impression that it's going to. I don't think it's going to tie itself in directly into Alien or anything like that. But I think what it's going to do is play with the abandoned themes of the original designs. I think that's what it's going to do. I get the impression that these complexes that we're wandering through in the game are actually it's a ship, or it's the remains of a ship, or something like that. That's the impression I'm getting anyway. I don't know yet. I've no idea. It may not even be that clear. It may not even be that simple. I don't know, but it is fascinating, and all of this derives from the highly visual implications that you get from Giger's designs. I mean, the idea, because none of this is in the script, none of this could have been part of Alien, you know, this biomechanical stuff, this weird uterine imagery. Like, another thing Giger does is there's a lot of very sexualized imagery in his work. Like, it's not just sexualized, it's like reproductive. You get a lot of like reproductive imagery in his designs, in his machinery. None of that may have been in Alien if they'd got someone else on to do that design. It's not in the script. It's all in his work. It's all in the visuals. And it's not something. What I absolutely love about the entire film is that it doesn't make a muchness of it. Once again, you don't get, which is what you get in Prometheus, by the way, you don't get characters sat around a table saying, well, this is what this means, and oh, look at this. If you direct your gaze over here, you'll notice this over here. You don't get that. The camera, the film allows you to take this stuff in naturally and ambiently. And I love that. I absolutely love that.
It's also worth bearing in mind that for the first 40 minutes of Alien, nothing actually happens.
No, it's all world building. It's
nothing,
all world building.
There's hardly any spoken dialogue in the first 20. And I could watch it again and again and again and again. It doesn't matter to me. As you say, it's taking in the everything else that's going on around it.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, I've got a real soft spot for horror from this era, from sort of like the mid 70s right through to the mid 80s, because it does generally. It has this quality of taking its time, establishing character and setting and mood, and often it does it in a very subtle way. I did a conversation with my friend Jack I think it was last year, about the Poltergeist films, the original Poltergeist films, and they do the same thing. The first Poltergeist does the same thing. You know, in the first 40 minutes to an hour, nothing happens.
Yeah.
There's hardly anything supernatural at all. It's all world building. It's all character building, and that's what this film is doing. It's establishing like the type of futuristic scape that we've got going on here, and it's a really interesting one because it's a sort of neoliberal dystopia. And given what was happening at the time in culture in the US and the UK in the late 1970s, where you had like Ronald Reagan's administration in the US, you had Thatcher's administration here, starting really ramping up the neoliberal experiment, you know, where basically it's a case of fuck society. As Margaret Thatcher herself said, there's no such thing as society. The poor are the poor because they deserve to be poor, and they deserve to be poorer. The rich are the rich because they deserve to be rich, and they deserve to be richer. It's all about the self, the individual. It's all about accrual, accumulation. It's all about material. That's what it's about. The primacy of the individual. And that's what we've got here. That's what we've got. The workers are like worker ants. They're ironically like the alien itself, as the alien will become later on. In the later films, when we learn that this alien is kind of a drone. It's like a soldier ant, basically. You don't get any of that in this one, by the way.
No.
This film, there's none of that. And looking at it in isolation, I find that really fascinating. One of the things, I love Aliens. I really like Aliens, but I do have problems with it. And one of the big problems I have with it is that it tries to too literally explain the life cycle of this creature. Yeah. I think that's a problem.
However, that is far more acceptable and believable than what Alien Covenant ends up doing.
Let's not. It's called Alien, for fuck's sake. One of the big things about this film, the original Alien, one of the things I love about it so much, that title, Alien, and by the way, the way the titles come in, the way you've got that pan across space, and you get this wonderful, subtle, haunting score, and the parts of the letters just fade in until it spells Alien. The title has greater resonance than just applying to the creature. The real horror of Alien isn't actually the creature itself. That's the irony. The creature itself is terrifying and it's horrific. Yeah, absolutely. But the true horror is the fact that there is this nihilism in the heart of the film and in the circumstances of the characters. They're out there doing this deep space mining operation, and they don't know what they're doing. They don't know where they are. They don't know what they're going to encounter. Out there, it's Lovecraftian, right? The universe is hostile and weird and frightening and strange, and humanity shouldn't be out there. That's the horror of the film, and that's the resonance of the title. The alien itself, the actual creature, the xenomorph, as it will be called later on, it is so oblique in this film. Hardly anything about its life cycle is explained. You see some of it, but you don't see much of it. You don't see where the eggs come from. You don't see what happens to, we see that the space jockey has had one burst out of its ribs. It's got this massive rupture in its chest. What was that alien like? The one that came from the space jockey, right?
Exactly. There's an implication that the derelict has been sort of almost like a cargo ship for these eggs. Yeah. If it hasn't, that would imply that whatever burst out of the jockey laid the eggs in the bottom hold. Yeah. There's a fantastic scene where Kane, played by John Hurt, is being lowered down the wall, and there's that sort of blue mist, sort of security film sort of stuff. Yeah. And the camera then cuts right back, and you can see he's just a little dot moving down this skeletal wall thing, and the eggs underneath him, and towards the far end, as it sort of stakes round, which gives the impression that this ship is fucking huge. As it stakes around to the end, you can see a light just at the far end of the tunnel, and I always thought to myself, I wonder what the fuck is down there. Yeah, right. That's creepy.
And what about the implications of this? Let's assume that it looks like, because of the way the eggs are arranged, because there is this security film over them, it looks like that they are there deliberately. It looks like that this ship is designed to carry them for whatever reason. And what does that mean? Why is it carrying them, and to where, for what purpose? Because one can only assume that it's a hostile purpose, right?
Well, potentially.
Because of the nature of these animals, because of what they do. And what does that mean about their origins? I know, obviously, in the wider mythology now, because of Aliens and because of all the films that come after, we know that there's a queen alien that lays the eggs. But we don't know that in Alien. No. In fact, that's not established in Alien at all. So where do they come from at this point?
When we come to the later chats, I think I might go a little bit in depth as to why. Whereas I don't have as many issues with Alien Covenant as Prometheus. Alien Covenant still goes a little too far in terms of trying to do everything has to have an explanation.
Exactly.
And my counter argument to all that was always, it doesn't. Because
no, it doesn't. And it's called Alien. It's called Alien. The whole point, but the thing about the horror in the original Alien, the thing that makes it so much more resonant and profound than practically all of the films that come after, is the fact that it really understands that title. It understands why that title has such a cold and powerful resonance, which is that it's the unknown. That's what's scary. That's what's scary. Yeah. I mean, there is a director's cut of this film. Like, there are two characters. There's Dallas and there's what's the other woman's name? I can never remember. Lambert, right? You never find out what happens to them. You never find out what happens to them. They just disappear.
But there is a cut scene, isn't there, where
there is a cut.
Dallas is being. Yes. Or hang on, is it Harry Dean Stanton's character?
No, it's Dallas. There is a scene in the extended edition, the director's cut, where you see Dallas all sort of plastered up, and it looks like what's happening is the alien is kind of using him to make more eggs, effectively. Yes. And it's, for me, I think the theatrical cut is better. I really think the theatrical cut is better for the simple reason that you don't need that. It's far scarier when you don't know, when they're just gone. And so what is it doing with them? What is the implication there? It's really scary. There is a thing with Lambert's character, the way where it keeps cutting back to her as the alien is getting closer to her and as she's cowering away from it. And you see it looks like its tail, that barbed tail winding around her leg. Yeah. And there are really, and that's deliberate. That's given like the uterinal imagery, we're given the sexual imagery that you get from Giger's designs, given the alien itself, which is basically like it's giant phallus, isn't it? You know, that's what it is. There are really dark and unpleasant implications there. It cuts away before you see it do anything. Yeah. But there is some really unpleasant, dark, really horrible implications there, which I think are brilliant, left unshown and unanswered.
I think the other thing as well is the environment itself. I mean, the ship in which they inhabit, the Nostromo, is the Nostromo itself is a tug. It's relatively small. Carrying this massive refinery behind it, as well as everything about their environment. The only place within their environment that doesn't look hostile is the deep sleep chamber.
Ironically, the place where they're not really alive anymore, where they're in stasis, right? Where they technically don't exist in normal time, right?
Everywhere else in their environment looks unforgiving, hostile, and dangerous. Even Mother's central, the computer core's central room, where you've got all those orange lights blinking. That's supposed to be a warm environment. There's something about that particular shot where the warmth is played off as cold.
Yeah, it's very interesting because what it feels like whenever any of them, there are only two characters who have access to Mother's core. Mother is the AI that controls the ship, by the way, and that's Ripley and Dallas. And even when Dallas is the captain, so Dallas should be the highest authority here, but it's clear that that's not the case, right? Yeah. Dallas is absolutely subordinate, not only to Mother, but also to the company. To the company and to the directives of the company. This is the other thing. We know from ambient detail that the company is Weyland-Yutani. Its mark is all over everything. But that, again, that's not discussed. That's not discussed. All they say is the company. They only call it the company. And one of the things that they discover as the film goes on, one of the central tensions is that they're not there by accident. They were actually sent to, and the company, quote unquote, knew this thing was there, or they knew something was there, and they wanted these guys to bring it back so they could commodify it. Again, it ties into this whole, there's a whole raft of socio-political commentary going on here within the imagery. Whether it was conscious or not, it was in the air. Clearly it was in the air. So it's 1979, you've got the Reagan administration, you've got neoliberalism desolating our societies and our political structures, absolutely desolating like welfare states and whatnot. That's what you've got here. This is almost like the natural extension of that situation. This is a neoliberal dystopia where working class people are disposable, completely disposable.
Very, very much so. By the time it comes around to Alien in 1986, and you've got because by that stage you had the real, like, sort of the sort of the tipping point, I'd say. Of like
we were in
sort
the
of
throes of it then.
the yuppie sort of like greed is good, that sort of thing.
Yes, exactly that. Loads of money. Yeah.
Burke's character, what was it, Paul Reiser?
Yeah, that's right.
Played by Burke's character, is the epitome of the company, man. The face of the corporate world, and that it's like funny. By the time you get to Alien 3, Wayland Yutani run the prison colony. By the time you get to Alien 4, they got bought out by Walmart or some shit.
Some nonsense.
But even that plays into the same thing where you've clearly learned nothing from the whole capitalism model at all. Because it comes out to the same thing.
It's gotten worse, right?
It's
gotten way worse. I mean, you get the fact that at this point where there is technology that is good enough to get people not only into space but like far into space, and they can. This shit, by the way, the Nostromo and this massive refinery needs the tiniest crew to operate. The tiniest crew, but they still have to work. They still have to earn a living, and that's bullshit, isn't it? That's awful. That is the worst thing. That in and of itself, beyond anything else, is dystopic. That in and of itself, the fact that the technology hasn't been used to improve things to the degree that you don't need that anymore.
No.
No, there are still companies. There are still companies, and it's never stated. This is one of the things I love about the film. It is never overly stated. It never explains too much, but you get the impression that the companies now are synonymous with the notions of governments. There's no distinction between them. If indeed there is anything like government at all, there may not be anymore. It may all be companies. So this is a neoliberal nightmare. And what I love about it is that in the Alien, this thing that they're trying to understand and commodify so they can turn it into God only knows what, pharmaceuticals, most likely weapons of war, let's be honest, they've met their match. They've encountered this thing that cannot be contained, that cannot be commodified. It's too alien, it's too strange, it's too unknown, and it's too aggressive.
And they try time and time and time again and fail.
Yeah, absolutely. That there is the central manifesto of Alien as a franchise, and it's certainly the central manifesto of this film.
And when Ian Holmes' character Ash turns around and says quite literally, to sum it up, it's the perfect organism.
Yeah.
It's
a wonderful concept. I mean, it just conceptually, it's brilliant. This could have because this is how it was envisaged. When Dan O'Bannon wrote the script, this is how it was envisaged as just another monster. It could have just been another in a very long line of pretty piss poor science fiction monsters. Guy in a rubber suit. It could have just been that. But bringing Giger on board changed the entire project. It changed the timbre of the project, and it brought in all of this and also the other sort of cinematic miracles that occurred. Things like getting Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley, which was by complete chance, chance. Getting Ridley Scott as the director, again, complete chance. All of that made it into something more, something better. And it's not, by the way, because of things this is the funny thing, it's lightning in a bottle. It's not because of things that were intentional. It's largely by accident. The reason Giger came on is because somebody on the design team handed Ridley Scott a copy of the Necronomicon, the Giger's artwork. And Giger Ridley flicked through it and went, it's this. This is it. This is what we've got to capture. If we can somehow get this into the film, if we can get this feeling, this ethos into the film, it will elevate it. It will make it into something completely different. And they had to work hard to get Giger on board.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't like to fly.
Oh, really?
He's got he had a real terror of flying. But they did. I mean, largely, I imagine through a liberal application of money, they got him on board, and he was there. He was actually on set. They're on the Alien quadrilogy set and whatnot. There are videos of him scurrying all over the space jockey, sculpting and adding details and stuff like that. So he was actively involved in sculpting details both on the alien and on the sets. And what I love about that is you've got another designer, a French designer, I believe, who did the work on the Nostromo and for the human environments, which creates this wonderful aesthetic dissonance, which is brilliant, right? Because it makes the alien stuff look properly alien. Yeah. When you get off the Nostromo and off the dropship and you are on LV-426, the world LV-426, and you are seeing that weird ship that looks like it shouldn't be able to fly. You can't even work, you know, in those...
Which part is the front, which part's back?
Right.
Is it upside down? Is it fucking back to front?
Right. This is, I mean, we'll get to it when we get to it, I know, but this is another thing that Prometheus fucked me off on. The fact that the reason you're not supposed to be able to work out how it functions, that's part of what makes it scary. That's part of what makes it intriguing. That's part of what resonates in your head, you know? Those are the questions that spark intrigue and connection and engagement with the material. Prometheus shows you. It just flat out shows you how it works. And it's like, no.
Do you know what? We've got a couple of other films to get to before we get to Prometheus, but I've still got Prometheus in my pending pile. It's been there 10 years.
Yeah. I've got two Prometheus chats to have. I've got one with you and one with my friend Jack Graham. And Jack Graham, whilst acknowledging the faults of Prometheus, quite likes it. So it's going to be interesting.
Okay, I mean, but do you want to combine all those into one? Then again, it'll be 2 against 1. That's not really fair.
I was going to say, I think I will do them separately, definitely. Okay. It's like, I mean, you know, I know I rag on Prometheus, and for damn good reason. Yeah. But there are things I do like about it. It is ambiguous. It is ambiguous. I mean, actually, that makes the things I hate about it, and I do hate them. It emphasizes them, sadly. It emphasizes them because you can see where this could have been such a good bloody film.
I wonder, I mean, as I said, we'll come to it, so we won't spend too long on here, but I do wonder how much 20th Century Fox was involved in that, because I wonder, is it such a massive departure from the original plan? And I look at Scorn and I think to myself, this looks like, this would be, if this had been the Prometheus prequel, all this sort of, your character sort of like wakes up and he's like digging himself out of the floor, and he's part of the floor, but he's not. It's like there's a lot sort of that jumps, that sort of like crosses over here. And
absolutely. Well, the thing with Scorn is it is a far more, certainly in terms of its themes, it is a far more sincere successor to the original Alien than Prometheus is, because it takes the style of storytelling, not just the aesthetics, but the style of storytelling, where you don't know a great deal. By the end of Alien, you know practically nothing. You only know little bits and pieces. You don't know where the alien comes from. You don't know what it is exactly. It's this weird sort of biomechanical entity. You have no idea where it comes from, what it does, how it metabolizes, you know, or why it's so fucking aggressive, why it does what it does. You have no concept of how intelligent it is, because it seems to be very intelligent in Alien.
Yeah. I'm glad that they went with the they didn't go with the original ending that was planned for Alien, which which to a degree the original ending that they had planned would have worked, in the sense that I like it in a film when nobody survives.
Yeah, me too.
That's why I particularly like Cloverfield, because one, everyone in Cloverfield was instantly dislikable, and two, they all died, because that's what would happen in that situation.
Absolutely.
So part of me would have been on board if Ripley hadn't survived the end of the film. What would have bugged the shit out of me at the end is if they'd have gone with the original ending, which was the alien recording the sign-off in her voice, hoping to get picked up by the something.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
That would have gone from a fantastic, creepy science fiction thriller to you just become a parody of yourself.
That robs the alien of something fundamental, doesn't it? Because it lends it too much intention somehow.
Yeah.
The part of what makes the alien scary is that it's not it's an animal, right? It's an organism of some description. That makes it scary for some reason. The fact that it has these animal instincts and that's what it's acting on, that's what makes it scary somehow. You don't really know what it's doing or why. That gives it intentionality. That gives it like a agenda and intelligence, and it doesn't really work. Also, I mean, like if Ripley hadn't survived, that takes away one of the great like themes of this film, which is its feminist angle, of course. Science fiction generally is an arena where women have been almost entirely excluded at this point. This is 1979, so all of the great feminist ructions in science fiction hadn't really happened yet. In terms of like character inclusion, that was certainly the case. There were loads of female creators like Ursula K. Le Guin, for example. But having Ellen Ripley, and also as an action film too, having a female protagonist who survives, that was at that time really radical.
Well,
radical.
Outside of things like maybe like Halloween or something.
Yeah. But the dynamic is slightly different in Halloween, because of course in Halloween, Laurie Strode is saved by male characters. She's more of a victim than anything. Whereas Ripley, she survives in this film because she is the most practical, level-headed person. Yeah. If they'd listened to her at the very beginning and followed the protocols, none of this would have happened.
None of it would have happened. And of course, I think we can all be thankful that at the end the cat's all right. So
the cat's all right too. What I love about the ending of the film, one of the ruffles, one of the tensions that is actually really cool, and it really makes Ripley a really interesting character, is the fact that she goes back to save Jones. Yeah. She goes to save the cat, the ship's cat. That's brilliant. That's utterly brilliant, because this is not a standard horror film, so there are no like children characters or anything like that to act as the sort of innocent victim characters or anything like that. Yeah. And the female characters, largely, they can't be considered that either. They can't be considered sort of like, the women in distress kind of characters, because Lambert can be a little bit sort of, the hysterical female stereotype at times, but the reason she exists is to contrast Ripley, right?
It is, but also because Veronica Cartwright didn't really have a clue what was going on for most of it, and all the fear that she
and apparently it was a nasty shoot, wasn't it? Like the whole thing. It's really deeply unpleasant. Those spacesuits that they're in when they're wandering across the surface of LV-426, couldn't breathe properly in them. I think it was John Hurt who had an asthma attack in one of them.
Well,
they were so hot that people fainted. It was a really dark, because again, this is 1979, so this is the height of my favorite era of cinema creation, where everything is practical. Everything is practical. The sets are not green screened, they're real. They are like constructed so that people can clamber over them. It's utterly brilliant. It lends them this sort of weight and dimension that even the very best CG environments just don't have yet.
Yeah, and of course, we're going back to Lambert's distress and things like that. Obviously, the infamous dinner scene and that.
Yeah, right.
Which is still one of the greatest practical effects I've ever seen. I can't work out for the life of me how they.
It's utterly brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean, it is. I mean, that's the sequence. That sequence is one that I watch, and I envy people like my parents who
saw it for the first time.
Yeah,
when it was brand new.
Before it was like part of cultural consciousness. Because now, of course, these days everybody knows like what the facehugger is. Everybody knows what the chest burster is. Everybody knows what the xenomorph does, even if they've never seen any of the damn films, because it's part of cultural consciousnness. It's become a myth. It's become like it's enshrined in our culture to the point whereby it's parodied in cartoons and comics and things like that.
Spaceballs.
And Spaceballs, yeah. I envy audiences in 1979 going to see it, and of course, again, 1979. You've got to understand, media was a different thing back then. Because of the lack of the internet, we weren't all interconnected. We didn't all know what was happening in films when we went to see them. We just didn't know. So people went to that to that film not knowing what was going to happen at that breakfast sequence. They did not know that John Hurt's character was going to effectively give birth at the breakfast table in the most violent, shocking way imaginable. And there, I mean, I know it's often apocryphal, you know, when you've got like, you know, accounts of people fainting in The Exorcist, for example, or when they first saw, like, you know, Lon Chaney Jr. as the Phantom of the Opera, you know, they apparently there are accounts of people fainting when he reveals his face. Apparently it is true. There were people who vomited in the aisles when the chestburster scene.
I don't know. Maybe we've just become desensitized as a
I think so.
But I remember watching Alien when I was about 11 or 12 and just going, "How the fuck did you do that?" I wasn't sitting there going, "Oh no, this is fucking too much for me." And I dread to think, would if I could go back now and watch that and people vomit in the aisles, am I going to be the person who sits there and goes, "I'll fucking suck it up"?
But no, I mean, I think you're right. I think it is cultural context. It's like The Exorcist, right? I mean, I remember my mother was terrified by The Exorcist. She was absolutely terrified. The reason being, she was, you know, not religious at all, not Catholic at all, doesn't believe in any of the bullshit surrounding The Exorcist. But I think she was 16 at the time it came out, and she was caught up in the sort of cultural swell of the damn thing.
The hysteria of it.
The hysteria, yeah. So when she went to see it, you literally did have nuns outside and psychiatrists like warning you not to go and see this film. So it did affect her massively. Now, when I finally got to see it, and I wasn't very old, by the way, I was literally like, I may not have even been double digits when I first saw The Exorcist at a friend's on a VHS. It just did nothing to me. I found it vaguely funny. Weirdly enough,
I saw it at the cinema when it got released properly, and like I think it was like sort of 90 something, mid 90s, right?
Yeah.
I think I was about 18 or whatever, and so about 98. I went to see it at the cinema, and I sat there for the whole thing and went, okay, well, you know, it's all right on a competent level from a filmmaking point of view. It's fine. It doesn't do anything out of place. The framing is okay. Blah, blah. Yep. Again, maybe I'm watching it too clinically, but I came out of it going, I really don't understand why everybody was.
No.
And then I think to myself, because nowadays we don't have Mary Whitehouse cunts.
Exactly. And I mean, one of the other things, of course, is that it is contextual. So The Exorcist, because of its infamy, we know about it. Even if we don't know about it, we know about it. It's one of those things where we are aware of it because it's part of cultural narrative now. By the time we were born, it was part of cultural narrative.
Yeah,
so we knew about it. And therefore, it's softened, it's cushioned, right? Especially for those of us like us who were raised on horror anyway. Yeah. So we have already seen stuff. We've already seen stuff that's disturbed us more. And also, I mean, the other factor is horror is contextual, you know, and it depends on who it is who's watching it. Some people will be, will be absolutely terrified by possession horror. Now, I have a real problem with possession horror. It has to work really hard for me to get an anchorage on it, because it doesn't do anything for me. I don't find it scary. I don't find the concept scary. It doesn't. The metaphysics of it doesn't have any relevance for me, especially when it's couched as The Exorcist is in this really powerful sort of pro-Catholic thing.
Yeah,
it's like, I mean, my big thing, as I've discussed on like other podcasts that we've done, because we did my friends Jack and Elliot and I, we did The Exorcist 3, you know, Legion.
Yeah. Which
is really good. That's an excellent film. That is a really top-notch horror film, and I would recommend anyone go and see that. Seek that one out. It is way better than it has any right to be. It's a really damn good film. We discussed how The Exorcist, like the portrayal of evil in The Exorcist, for example. Now, what you're supposed to have in The Exorcist is absolute elemental evil. There is evil in the universe, and it exists in this thing, in this demon Pazuzu, right? Mm-hmm. But what does it do? It possesses the body of a little girl in an isolated room in an isolated house and performs grotesque parlor tricks. And it's like, well, if that's the extent of metaphysical evil, then it's no great shakes, is it? Shut the fucking door and you're done.
Well, right? Yeah. I mean, in terms of horror, I've always found the stuff that you don't see to be a little bit more unsettling. Like, so, for example, Session. My mum loves Session 9. It's a great film because of the stuff you don't see. Going back to the things you don't see for the majority of the episode, anyway. Episode 6 of Haunting of Hill House, with the one that was done like virtually like sort of 3 takes.
Yeah, so
the
good.
way the camera pans and everything like that, and it's the stuff that you don't see, stuff that you think is happening just off to the right that you don't. That's the stuff
that is chilling,
me.
isn't it?
Yeah.
When you see it, then when you go back and watch it, then you do, because you're looking for it, and you do see what you didn't take in consciously.
Yeah.
And you realize, and this is the same. Alien is the same, of course. What Ridley Scott realized, and it's a brilliant move, is that you shouldn't show this creature, only parts of it. Frame it in such a way that the audience doesn't know what they're looking at. There is one shot in this film, actually, and I think it is a mistake. It is one of the only things in this film that I actually don't like, and that's the shot from the back of the dropship at the end when you see the full alien.
When it's attached to the harpoon and it goes up. I think
that is an enormous mistake, because you get to see its anatomy, and it looks because it's a guy in a suit, it looks kind of humanoid, you know? I think that's a huge mistake. It should have been left ambiguous. I think it should have been left ambiguous as to what it actually looks like, and that is so much scarier.
Well, I mean,
up until that point, it is ambiguous. You have no idea what this, barring it's got that sort of sloped penile head, it's got like a barbed tail, it's got claws, it's got the retractable mouth, but you don't know what the rest of it looks like.
No, I mean, if you're talking about being a master of his environment and like sort of what you see is what you don't see and sort of things like that, there's two really good examples within the same film of what you don't see, which again, one I mentioned earlier, where I thought it was a piece of machinery hanging up in the chains in the cargo hold. And that's the whole thing, like sort of curled up waiting for its time.
It's so clever, that shot. It is so clever.
It's because beautiful. It's one of my all-time favourite shots of anything ever. It's fantastic.
You don't know, do you? You just don't twig until it comes down, until you see it unfurl, and you're like, holy fuck, it has been there the entire time.
Yeah.
And incredible. In full shot.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. The second time is when she's on the emergency escape vehicle, and she's pressing a few buttons in that, and suddenly its hand pops out. What you think you're looking at is an exhaust tube or a fucking some sort of piping, and it's not. And they play on that when we eventually do the video. We'll talk about it, but they play on it in Alien 3, where she thinks she sees it hiding under like sort of some pipes now, and she goes to hit it with a pipe, and it turns out no, what she does, she's bust a rusty pipe open.
It's very clever. It's the inversion of it, isn't it? It's
exactly.
I mean, by the way, guys, I mean, I know I've already done a chat with Jack Graham about this, but Alien 3, way better than people give it credit for. It's a fantastic film. It's a fantastic film. Go and please seek it out and watch it put away all of like the internet bullshit, the critical bullshit, because they don't know what they're talking about. It's a great film. It's actually, for my money, one of the best of the Alien films. But
yes, it is. Thank you. I'm fucking vindicated. Thank you so much.
It is. It is one of the cleverest of the Alien films. It's got amazing performances. It's got this incredible atmosphere. And given, I mean, as you and I know, because we've looked into the background of this, given the bullshit that goes on behind the scenes of that film, it's a miracle anything even halfway coherent came out at all.
Exactly. Yeah, and I do feel, and I will forever feel sorry for David Fincher as he pretty much designed the film. I'd love to sit him down and go, no, actually embrace it. It's fucking brilliant. Honestly,
I'm not being contrarian. I'm not being sort of like, going against the grain. It is, I think, a genuinely brilliant film. It's flawed. Don't get me wrong. It's flawed, but all of these films are flawed. All of them are flawed for whatever, in one way or another. They're all flawed. But Alien 3 it is so far ahead of most of the other films in terms of its ideas and the concepts that it plays with and what it does with the characters. The metaphysics of that film. It's a film about religion and about, theology. And it's so cool. I mean, it's so brilliant. The way we'll do it when we get to it, but that film's great. That, honestly, guys, go and watch it. Go and watch it like, try and shrive yourself of that accrual of cultural preconception, of critical preconception, the zeitgeist that it's like, oh, it's one of the lesser of the Alien films. It is so not. It is a fantastic film, and it deserves a lot more.
Absolutely.
But no, I mean, the original Alien, I think is. I mean, I think I don't know whether I like it better than Alien 3. I think they're very different films, to be honest.
They are different films, but I hold them in pretty much the same regard in terms of what they do with their environments, what they do with their lighting, how they set the mood, particularly through lighting. Alien 3 is one of the best examples I've seen of a film that can make such warm colours, such warm-looking environment seem like the most aggressively cold and harsh environment. It's fucking brilliant. How you do that, I have no idea.
It is wonderful, isn't it? I mean, the other thing you get in Alien, of course, when you translate, when they're in the alien ship, then you get the impression that they are inside. The impression is that they're inside something living, right? They're actually inside this alien organism, and they don't know what it's doing to them while they're in there. And that's one of the scarier things, of course. It's one of the implications. You get this sense that there's stuff in the air, there's stuff in the atmosphere. It's really dark and unpleasant. What I love is when you get back to the human environments, the industrial environments, and in its own peculiar way, it's no less aggressive, it's no less threatening.
It's no safer, it's no more welcoming, it's nothing like that.
It's very clever. It's really, really clever because it's saying, again, it ties into the themes of the title, that if you really want to take that sort of criticism, that satire of neoliberalism to the nth degree, it's saying that the environments that neoliberalism and industria constructs around us are as alien and as antithetical to us as like this actually alien ship on an alien world. And that's so fucking clever. What I love, again, I really want to emphasize this, the film is not one of those damn fucking like very modern films, very postmodern films that is aware of its themes and hammers you over the fucking head with them to the point whereby you've got characters basically almost breaking the fourth wall, turning to the screen and talking at you. These are the themes of the film. Did you know, by the way, this is a film about themes. This is a film about things, and we're going to tell you about them.
In excruciating detail.
For me, that's the Christopher Nolan thing. Don't get me wrong, I like a lot of Christopher Nolan's films, but Christopher Nolan does that a lot, where you've got characters sat around sort of effectively talking to the audience about what the films are about. And it's like, fucking stop it. We get it, okay? You don't need to tell us. We're clever enough. This is a visual medium, by the way. The whole point of things like cinema is that you take in the themes visually, you accrue them in a different way, you experience them in a different way. If you want characters to talk about it, write a fucking novel, that's where that happens. Or write a play, even a play, And
I think whereas the script sort of deals with the things in stage, as I said, for the first massive part of the film, there's very, very little dialogue or anything like that. But a lot of it has to go to the cast as well, because there are times. I'm guessing that they might have been told to sort of do improv or something like that. For example, the dinner scene or anything like that. I get very, very little sense of scripted interaction there.
No, it feels really natural, doesn't it? Like from the very beginning, like the earliest dialogues you have with these characters, that again, it's so subtle. I love the way immediately, and it happens in like a split second, and it happens so naturally. You get the sense of the division on the Nostromo, the upstairs downstairs thing. So you've got like the officers, you've got Lambert, and you've got Dallas, and you've got kind of Ripley. Ripley's the interesting one because she's the intermediary, right? Yeah, she's the one who goes up and down between the two class structures. And then in the underground, you've got the other two characters who are the engineers, effectively.
Yeah.
I mean, that's brilliant. And it doesn't make a muchness of it. It makes no muchness of it, but there is like a class awareness here. There is still like a Marxist reading of this film, and I love that. I absolutely love that. You get it naturally through the dialogue. You get characters talking about their bonuses and are they going to get paid for all this, and moaning that it's always us who gets the burden of the physical work, and all. It's so good. Yeah. It's so good.
To the point where it's very, very conversational. As I said, it doesn't feel like, okay, I'm waiting for my line to, now this is my line, I'm going to deliver my line. It doesn't feel like any of that. Because a lot of the conversations overlap as well. A lot of people talk over one another. It's very, very difficult to sort of see the dividing line between actor delivering line and the script that they're delivering.
It's really clever. It is so clever, and it does it in this documentary way. Because of the cinematography, it feels almost like you're watching a documentary sometimes.
Especially again round the dinner scene, the way the camera does. I think is it the camera pans round behind John Hurt. And
I think so.
Goes round to the right where Dallas is sitting on the other side, and he's got Ripley to the left of him, I think. A lot of it deals with the camera play as well.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. The framing of the film is beautiful. I mean, it is for my money, it's probably Ridley Scott's best film in that regard.
Yeah, I
think the direction is sublime. It's absolutely very sublime. Little.
There's virtually not a frame in the film that doesn't work.
No,
and it's very for any film, really. It's regardless of how old the film is, or from what genre, or from what period the film is from. It's very, very difficult to say that about any piece of cinema.
Yeah, no, it's really clever. I mean, the way it communicates relationships between the characters, that's awesome. That's so fucking clever. And again, you've got to give it to the actors as well. The actors in this film are fantastic because they're working with bare bones. There's very little to these characters in the script. They are very much functionaries. They're there to carry the plot along and to get them to LV-426, to get the alien, and then to experience the horror set pieces. And yet, within this framework, you get a really distinct and powerful idea of what the relationships are. Mm-hmm. So Dallas and Ripley obviously have a lot of respect for one another. Mm-hmm. You get that from just these tiny little subtle elements of their performances and their interactions, because it's not in the dialogue.
Yeah.
It's really clever. The thing between Ian Holmes' character and Ash and Ripley.
Yeah.
Which is really weird, right?
There's a slight antagonistic.
Yes.
She doesn't fully trust him, but there's no indication as to why.
He has, as we find out, he's an android, right? He's a synthetic person, as they like to be called, apparently, in this universe. And there is this real discomfort with him and Ripley, and it seems to feed into the themes of feminism and as a result of and patriarchy, right? It really does, because he is, in many respects, he's the ultimate patriarch in the sense that he is an exaggeration of all that is male. He is a synthetic male entity, and because Ripley is female, and also because she doesn't abide by what authority says, by and large, she goes by common sense, by logic a lot of the time. She's like an unknown quantity to him. He does not like her, and he does not understand her because she is uncontrollable.
And he undermines her at every opportunity, although you don't automatically register it at first glance, especially when she's saying maintain quarantine, and then he opens the door.
It's really subtle. It's really subtle. He dismisses her a couple of times, actually. When he's studying the face hugger, I think it is, after it's fallen off John Hurt, and she says, flush it into space, get rid of it. Who knows what it's going to do when it's dead? You know what? She's absolutely right.
Yeah.
She is absolutely 100% correct. This alien thing, we don't know what it's going to do. We don't know what its capacities are. And that is the correct thing to do. That is the correct thing to do. I mean, it gets really deep and profound when you get the sequence where he tries to kill her. Because he tries to kill her with a rolled up Playboy magazine, with a rolled up sex magazine. And I mean, have you listened to Ridley Scott's commentary on the DVD, by the way?
I haven't, no.
He says that was really deliberate. That wasn't part of the original script, but what he wanted to get at, because you've got all of this like Freudian imagery in it anyway, thanks to Giger, he wanted to emphasize that. So it is a kind of, you've already had the male rape scene where you've had John Hurt attacked by the face hugger and whatnot. So he wanted to invert that. So you got like, Ash is an android, right? So he doesn't have the equipment, as it were. So he uses a synthetic phallus, technically, the rolled up magazine to try to choke her. It's like, it's really sexually violent in its own peculiar way. And what he was trying to get at is that this synthetic, this sort of absolutism of patriarchal masculinity is nevertheless completely impotent.
Yeah.
It's really fucking clever, that, isn't it? And again, you don't get characters talking about that. It's all in the visuals.
No, exactly. Well, looks like he's throat fucking her. We better
Yeah,
stop him.
if it were Prometheus, it would have done that.
Yeah, I know.
It would have had characters sat around talking
and this
about
is I we'll get onto Prometheus when we do the video for Prometheus, but what I will say is I find it very, very difficult to believe how the two films are linked by the same fucking director.
I know.
He gets it in one film and then
doesn't in the next. Other.
And we will cut to the point where I will actually have to sit down and dig Prometheus out of the fucking pending pile and watch it. So when we actually come to do that video, 5 videos from now, I can rant and I can be justified in my rant.
I dig it out like once every so many years just to see if I'm right. Do you know what I mean? To see if my largely contemptuous attitude towards it is correct, and every single time it gets worse.
I'm actually looking forward to the antithesis, the different version that you're going to do with your.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because, again, we will talk about its good qualities as well because it does have them. There's some.
I'm struggling to think of them at the moment, but
there are elements.
Whenever I think of that film, I only think of the things that automatically piss me off. Now, I don't know whether that's a testament of me more so than the film, but possibly. I wouldn't say that my standards are necessarily massive when it comes to being entertained by cinema, but I think the thing that annoys me about Prometheus the most is I got sucked in, and I'll never let it happen again. I got sucked in by the trailer. I went, this is,
and the hype. The hype.
This is what I'm waiting for. The teaser trailer was amazing, and I saw the film, and I came out in the cinema and went, fuck yeah.
Yeah, it's the way people spoke about it as well. That's what really pissed me off.
Like it was some sort of seminal fucking masterpiece. And I went, no, he did that back in 79.
Yeah. You were trying to hoodwink us. Don't tell me that this is like, the second coming. Don't tell me that this is something brilliant and beautiful. No. And it evidently isn't. No. But Alien is a million times cleverer. It's a million times cleverer than Prometheus is because it has everything Prometheus tries to do. All of those existential questions that are in Prometheus are in Alien, and they're more sincere, they're more subtle, and they engage the audience in a much more intimate and profound way because they do it undidactically. It's not characters telling you what you should be talking about or thinking about. It's doing it through its subject matter, through its story, and through its aesthetics, through its imagery. And so that imagery,
its lighting, its score, it's everything. There's supposed to be an Alien TV show coming at some point.
Yes, Romulus, I believe it's called.
Yes, I'm mildly, cautiously optimistic.
Fingers crossed, because it's a different format for one thing for this material. It's never been done it's never been done in TV before, and there is potential there because again, one of the things that's about the original Alien that's so good are the little bits of story that it implants that have no wider explanation. Yeah. So the notion of the company, the notion of what's going on back on Earth, what is the political situation, what is the economic and environmental situation, what are these guys doing out here, why are they out in space on this? Obviously, this ship is one of the greatest endeavors humanity has ever created. It's enormous.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, here's the thing. About a couple of years ago, there was I think it was for the release of the 40th anniversary of Alien or something like that. There was a whole bunch of shorts that were put together. And that were released on YouTube, I think. And one of them, I don't know if you managed to see all of them. One of them creeped me the hell out. It was like two people getting away on an escape pod, and there was an android on the other side of the door saying, "I'm going to get you away," and sort of blah blah blah. And it turns out the android flips on them, and the girl wakes up in the shuttle pod, and her partner, who she's escaping with, has already got a face hugger on it. Did you see that one?
Yeah. It's very creepy.
Everything about that, the lighting, the framing, everything, and it lasts about fucking 10 minutes, if that. But everything about it harkens so much more back to I would say comfortable in between Alien and Aliens.
Yep.
It's the tone of it sat very, very comfortably between the two of them, and it was fantastic. Not all of these little shorts hit the mark. That one did everything perfectly.
There's so many concepts that would be fun to play with in the Alien universe, and one of the big ones is of course the notion of the synthetics, right? Synthetic human beings, because within the films they're powerfully ambiguous. you really don't know a great deal about them, and you are, because the very first one you meet is Ash, you are immediately suspicious of them, as Ripley is, of course, when she meets Bishop in Aliens. Now it turns out, insofar as we're aware, Bishop is on the level.
But he's played by Lance Henriksen, who looks like an experiment anyway.
Anyway, yes, that helps, of course.
Yeah.
But then, of course, you get the best, probably the best of the android characters, which is ironic given that he's in one of the worst films, which is, of course, David. One of the only interesting characters from Prometheus.
Yeah. Yeah, when we eventually get to Alien Covenant, I'll tell you what, I think the whole thing sort of falls down. You know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, I know what you're going to talk about. I mean, it is. It's
undermines
that notion.
everything.
Yeah, it is that. It's that notion of trying to explain. Right, you don't. This is a Hollywood thing, by the way. This is it's in like present day Hollywood. There are, and this is not even hyperbole. This is not like a joke. There are obviously there are formats of what films are supposed to be and what they're supposed to consist of. So there are actual checklists that are like meted out to creators. Well, it's got to have this. It's got to have that. It's got to have this. So there's got to be like this whole thing of there has to be tension. For dialogue to occur, for interaction to occur, for drama to occur, there has to be tension. And it's like, fucking no. If there's tension, it happens naturally as a result of the way the characters interact with one another. Yeah? You don't need to inject it. And
the other thing is the need to explain everything. It's the Star Wars Solo story thing. Oh, we'll explain to you how he got those fluffy dice in his fucking car.
Absolutely.
No one gives a fuck how he got the fluffy dice.
Doesn't matter. And with the thing is, with certain franchises, it's antithetical to what they are when you try to explain them. And this is one of them. This is one of them. I would say even Aliens went too far when it explained the life cycle of the alien far too clearly and far too cleanly. Don't get me wrong. I love the Alien Queen. It's great. And the sequences with the Alien Queen are awesome.
But there is still a certain level of ambiguity within that. So, for example, if the Queen sits on her egg sack as she's churning out eggs, what is the parameter for creating another queen? How many queens can a queen actually make in her lifetime? What is the lifespan of a queen?
What triggers it, right?
Can the workers knock out one egg every 6 months until one of them is a queen? So there's still enough room in there to
is wiggle
basically
room.
go whatever direction.
Yeah, I still think it went too far myself. I didn't need to know like that much about the life cycle of the alien. I think it works better when it's mysterious. It works better when it's like unknown. But yeah, I mean, like within the purview of that film, the Alien Queen is awesome. It's such a brilliant concept, and it's so well realized as well. It's beautiful the way it's framed in that film. It's absolutely stunning. But what I love about the original Alien, of course, is you've only got one. You've only got one of these aliens, and it is one of the what we would come to know as the drones later on, the sort of worker or soldier aliens. And it wreaks absolute devastation on what must be these highly sophisticated. Well, they're astronauts, aren't they? They're not only astronauts; they're engineers, they're pilots, they're
space truckers.
They are like geniuses. These people, compared to like your average 2023 human being, they're geniuses. They're absolute geniuses. These people, they are the pinnacle, right? And this thing desolates them.
That's what works about Alien 3 is it mixes the first two perfectly well. One, you go back to one alien. Two, the damage it does to the wider population. There's supposed to be like about 100 inmates or something like that, or 50 inmates.
These are violent people, right? These are people who know how to fight, right?
Yeah. And in Aliens, you had a colony, a population of what I think about 130 odd people at Hadley's Hope, and they get swarmed by lots of them. But just the damage that one can do to a population about the same size. So it's.
I mean, one of the things I love about Aliens is in the extended cut when you find out that the commander of that settlement is Captain Hollister from
Mac McDonald.
That makes me howl every time. I love that.
Yeah,
I absolutely love that.
I'd like to get hold of the Dark Horse comics. I had them years and years ago when I was a teenager. It was in 2 volumes, Newt's Tale, and it was the story of aliens from her perspective. So you don't meet Ripley or the Marines until like 3/4 way through the first book, because everything leading up to it, and the Alien Special Edition that shows the family going off and seeing the derelict. And that I liked the Special Edition of Aliens because it added in, for me, it added in certain context to certain scenes. Yes, this fits now because of XYZ.
Yeah. Did you ever play Alien Isolation, Jer?
I have. I didn't. I got a little way through it. I do need to go back and play it again at some point. But then again, I haven't done any console gaming for fuck knows how long. I really do need to go back and do that.
That is probably...
I loved. I went into Alien Isolation cautiously optimistic. So that's going to be on my fucking tombstone. Because I bought Colonial Marines.
Oh, you didn't.
And I played 16 minutes of it
you
and turned it off. No, because I thought fucking brilliant, an Aliens game, excellent.
Yeah.
Oh well, we all know that fucking.
We all know what happened there, don't we? By the way, guys, if you don't know, Alien Colonial Marines was it's one of the iconic video game fucked up releases of the last decade.
If anyone hasn't seen it, there's a channel I think called Gamers, and they did the rise and fall of Alien Colonial Marines. It's like a documentary video. It lasts about an hour or something. Check it out.
Worth watching.
It really does. It goes through the whole sorry process.
It is actually really interesting, isn't it? Why it was released in such a fucked up way.
Yeah.
But Alien Isolation is, for my money, that is the most sincere sequel to the original Alien, because it not only does it carry on like the direct story of the original Alien, it also captures the ethos of the original Alien, in the sense that you've got this one alien, you are trying to evade it all the way through. You get this real sense of just how terrifying this entity is.
The environment of Sevastopol Station. That scene where you're trying to go from the ship to the station and you lose a couple of your team members, things exploding, but because it's in space, you don't hear the explosions,
and
you don't hear it's the sensory deprivation of that scene.
Yeah,
freaked
it's
me
a
out.
Wonderful game. That is. It's guys. It's very scary.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It is very
exactly
very
what it's
scary.
supposed to be. And it took its influences, and it didn't try to sort of one up the influences or anything like that. It took them and said that this is in the context of this universe.
Yeah.
And down to the design, like sort of everything has got that 1979.
Yes, the technology, right? What they haven't done is, again, what Prometheus did, and try to update the technology. They actually went back to the technology that's displayed in the original Alien and reproduced it to the point whereby they looked at the aesthetics inside the Nostromo, and they said well, this is obviously going to be it's almost like flat pack, right? So there's going to be commonalities here. So they've taken elements of the internal mechanisms of the Nostromo and incorporated them into this station. It's just utterly brilliant. Utterly brilliant.
Yeah, did you ever do a playthrough?
Haven't. Yeah, I've always meant to. But it's so bloody scary. I mean, it leaves me very tense. Alien Isolation, very tense.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
And it's one of those games where I think it would be painful to play. You know, I've got to work up to that one, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. But ladies and gentlemen, have you got anything else you want to add to?
No, I think we've really done. The only thing I'd really want to say is the original Alien is one of my texts. It's one of my maybe top 3, not only horror films but films. Full stop. I think it is one of the best films ever made. I think it's beautiful. I think Alien is just the most resonant, beautiful, brilliant horror film. And it's a fantastic science fiction film on top of that.
Yeah. It's science fiction and horror are two genres which sit very, very nicely together, and yet more often than not, the results that come out of that bonding they are fucking atrocious. Yeah, I can think of so many examples off the top of my head. Not going to do it, of course. So it's nice to see one where the marriage between the two genres is so perfect, almost cellular level perfect.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? I mean, it is the text that people go back to, isn't it? It's what they refer back to when they talk about the commingling of science fiction and horror. Alien is that text. It does it perfectly. It does it beautifully, and it's a joy. I mean, that film. It's one of those films that I watch at least once a year, every year, and every time I love it. Every
Yeah.
single, and as I say, I'm so familiar with this damn film. I've known it since I was a kid. I can't remember when I first saw it.
And yet
I cannot
it doesn't.
remember.
You'll always find something new either in the lighting or the set design. You'll see something at the corner of your eye that you didn't see the first 150 times you watched the film. It's one of those films that never outstays its welcome, doesn't become stale upon revisitation or anything like that. It's very, again, rare for a film to actually hold that ability.
Yeah. Totally, and it's also very scary. I mean, it's got this wonderful, disturbing, distressing, very nihilistic atmosphere. This universe is nihilism, isn't it? There's nothing good here. There's nothing like to salvage here. That's the other thing you get from this film, and from later, certainly through the other films as well. This is an unsalvageable universe.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that. Love that. The alien is almost like the encapsulation of that, isn't it? Because like its entire imperative is just to exterminate and to incorporate. Yeah. It's brilliant. Utterly love it.
Well, I'm not sure when we're going to get around to doing part 2 of this, Aliens, but we shall at some point. Now that we've finally got this out 13 years after initially talking about it.
I'm so pleased. So pleased.
Same here. See, we can, when we focus, we can do it, George.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I might do? I might save this one for my channel, and I might, because my friends Jack Graham and Elliot and I, we're going to be doing Halloween, the original Halloween.
Okay.
Halloween. So I might, as a treat for the channel, I might release this and the Halloween one together on the channel. That'd be fun.
Excellent.
That would be fun.
Excellent. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed this. This has been a long time coming.
Yeah, it's been great to chat about it.
Thoughts on Alien will become Aliens will come in a separate video, and then Alien 3, and then working all the way through to eventually to.
Yeah, my only caveat is I'm not doing Alien versus Predator Requiem. No.
We can just keep those to one side. Those two films.
I will not watch it. I just won't.
It's only got one fucking good scene in it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's
apart from that, it's
execrable.
There's one grossly unpleasant, distressing scene in it, and I don't think you can build an entire 90-minute film around that, quite frankly.
You definitely bloody can't. No, you cannot. Not when it's that inept, you can't.
No, certainly not. So, Aliens, our chat on that will be at some point, hopefully in the semi-near future.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Looking forward to it. And it'd be nice revisiting, actually. I haven't seen Aliens for a good long while.
Actually, yeah, I need to. I will watch Prometheus at some point. I will do it, but not tonight.
I will have to rewatch Covenant, because, like, the thing about Covenant is every single time I watch it, I forget it.
Yeah, I do appreciate where you're coming from there. But there are some things that it does very well, but there are some things as well that for every good thing it gives you, it then takes it back by giving you something utterly nonsensical. And
stuff that like actively breaks this franchise. And that's the thing about Covenant.
Still doesn't wind me up as much as Prometheus. It's incredible.
It's odd, isn't it? It's odd, isn't it? It's really strange. It doesn't wind me up as much as Prometheus either, and that's really weird. I don't understand why that would be, because it is the worst film.
I'd say Prometheus is still the worst, but Alien Covenant. I don't have as much of an issue with it. Alien Covenant still annoys me for different reasons, but we will come to that. We will come to that when we come to it, ladies and gentlemen.
We will. Brilliant. Well, yeah, where can people find you?
Okay. Well, Jesus Christ. Well, here on YouTube, sadly, you can find me at Wolfkang1, Transformers Review, 7 Days to Die playthrough, and some other stuff if I ever eventually get around to fucking doing it. You can follow me over on what used to be Twitter. You can find me on the Wolfkang1 handle, and also on Blue Sky as well. Do you know what? I've got a redemption code for that I can't give away, which is weird, isn't it?
It's odd, isn't it, that? You'd think people would be flocking there at this point, right?
And you can also check out my channel's Facebook page. It's all under everything. I'm under Wolfkang1, quite frankly, because it's just easier. Yes, I've enjoyed this. George, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
This. We will do this again very soon.
Excellent. And as for myself, guys, you can find me here at Exaggerated Elegy. You can find links to all of my published work over at strangeplaygrounds.com, or if you go onto Amazon and type in George Daniel Lee, you'll find all of my short story collections on there. If you go over to Arrow Films recently, you'll find a new Blu-ray set for the Hellraiser films. And myself and my colleague Kit Power, we are on the Hellbound DVD. We did did a featurette for it called Hell is What They Wanted, which is an 85 long minute chat that
I'm
we
looking
did
forward to that.
about Hellbound. Yeah, really ecstatic to be part of that. That's like, that made my year, frankly. I mean, I kind of don't need to do anything else this year. That's made it for me. I'm really, really dead pleased. Beyond that, like Jay, you can still find me over at Twitter. We'll see how long that lasts, and you can also find me over at Blue Sky as well under Exaggerated Elegy. Thanks, Jay. Thank you. It's been brilliant. It's been really, really cool. And thank you guys for listening. Until next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.